Welcome to Boomer Being. Today's topic, how to choose wine for the holidays. My guest today is Samantha Ettore. Samantha has 22 years experience with food and wine, 7 of those years as owner of Wine Sense in Andover. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you.
Our focus today is on wine and the holiday meal. Would you advise our viewers how to go about selecting and serving wines that can be paired successfully with food to enhance everyone's special occasions?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Throughout the holidays, or right when the holidays are about to approach, we are at times a little bit crazy running around, and we always, at times we tend to leave one of the most important things, wine, for last. Well, there isn't much to be worried about or to scramble the last minute. There are so many options out there, and there's so many flavors that it will always fit for everybody's taste and style. One of my favorite ways to start an evening of a holiday meal, just a special meal, is with a sparkling wine. And sparkling wines is a very good way to wake up the palate and just start the evening, perhaps welcome your friends and family, and serve them something bubbly and vivid. In this case, I usually recommend Cremant or Prosecco. At times I also recommend Champagne, but we don't have to always stay with Champagne. Sometimes it could be a little bit heavy on the price, and there's so many other options out there when it comes to opening up something vivid, bubbly, something that again will wake up your palate and begin the festivities. And in this case, I brought in a Cremant d'Alsace. This is a sparkling wine from France, from Alsace. Some of you might be familiar with that region. Tends to be very crisp, very clean, very refreshing, and you can have it as an aperitif, or you can actually pair it with food. It's champagne and sparkling wines tend to be quite ideal for food. Then as we go on in our meal and as we go on our evening, you can go in several ways. You can perhaps try, it all depends how many meals, how many courses you're having in the evening. You can go as wild as several wines, and try to pair and capture the style of each meal and to bring it together with the wine. And you can go as an aperitif to perhaps hors d'oeuvres and some pastas, soup. Also, we can do this with soup or pastas. And then as the meal gets deeper and more complex, I always recommend as the wine to get a little bit more complex. So as an aperitif also, or very well for a meal, I brought in a Italian white, and this is a very interesting grape. By the way, this is a grape called Nocciola for Dolomites, the Dolomites, and it is very round. And the way I describe wine is with normal words, round in the sense of full body, and instead of going into fruit tones and tropical tones, it will go more to savory tones, which I think are ideal for Thanksgiving, Christmas, those very extravagant meals that we tend to have that are filled with texture and flavor and they're just phenomenal. So this savory acidity in body will help the meal start coming together. Then you can do as simple as this, and you have aperitif, salad appetizers, the turkey or ham, and dessert. Or if you like to be a little bit more on the deeper darker style. You can go here, which is a much deeper wine. So there are various ways that you can prepare wine-wise for the meal that it will accommodate everybody's palate. This is a Chardonnay from Etna Valley, California. Very expressive, slightly oaked, but not over the top. Also, it pleases a lot of people. And not only that, it's perfect for the time of year. It's a little bit chilled, it's a little bit cold, so we need to think about temperatures outside, about how your body might be perceiving these wines. Moving on to a Pinot Noir. When in doubt, always serve Pinot Noir. It's one of the friendliest wines to pair with food, and it's very, very forgiving. This is one of the very few wines that pairs very well with fish. And if you're interested in something a little bit deeper and darker, then go ahead and go with a little bit more modern, a little bit more extracted, fuller body red. And of course, dessert. Never underestimate the power of dessert. This is a Bagnon, incredibly special production from France. And this can either substitute dessert, in the sense as a close in the evening, even after dessert, or with cheese at the end of the meal when you're sitting those extra few minutes with your family at the table, or just with a simple vanilla ice cream. Sometimes when you spend your a little bit more time and you do a little bit more homework with dessert wines, you can actually go a little bit easy on what kind of dessert you're making. You don't have to go so extravagant, and you're working so much harder already with all the courses prior to that, that maybe you can get away with serving a little bit of a special, a simple vanilla bean ice cream.
Interesting.
Thank you.
I'm learning so much already. I notice, of course, that we've gone to very, very light to very, very dark.
Correct.
And that's the direction we would always go in?
Yes. Yes, I always recommend, just like your meals, when you start with, let's say, a light appetizer, some hors d'oeuvres, then you move on to a soup, a salad, a pasta, and a main entree. Now, I'm Italian, so pasta is always there. But it doesn't have to be pasta, but there's always a little bit of that progression of getting more complex and deeper and fuller, and even the flavors become a little bit more intense. You will want the wine to go in on pair, in accompanying the flavors and the complexity of your dishes.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
So now I notice there are 6 wines here.
Yes.
What would you recommend? Would you always recommend there be 6 wines, or would a person have, latitude, how many wines?
Well, the retail inside of me will say, yes, of course, you need to have 10 wines. No. Actually, it all depends on your audience, really, and also the experience that you want to give and you want to gift over the holidays. It does require a little bit more work when you do all these wines, but also adds to the experience. But it could be as simple as I was mentioning earlier. If you want to go, all depending how complex your menu is and flavors and textures, again, you can go as simple as here. Voila. Wait, we need a red. We can go as simple as that. And what I mean, having these, waking up the palate, bringing you into an aperitif, and having a red for entree, and then moving on to dessert. Sometimes you can do this if you have more of a red wine crowd, and go more bolder red at the end, but go ahead and start that way. So there's so many ways that you can play around. It all really depends about how many courses you're doing and what experience you wanna have throughout the evening.
Thank you. That was very, very interesting.
Thank you.
So now it's time for the meal, and you're thinking, okay, I have to set my table, and I have all these wines because I want my guests to have that full experience you described. How do I manage the glasses? And how do I hold the glass? I mean, tell us a little bit about glasses,
Of
please.
course. So one thing that I always recommend, I always tell people, is not to worry so much about glasses. First, do go the extra mile to get flutes for champagne glasses for the sparkling. It sets the mood. It's celebratory. You're together. It really sets the mood. But when it comes to actual glasses for the evening, if let's say you're doing all these, taking away these two because this is sweet, you can actually get away with just 2 glasses.
The flute and the wine glass.
2 glasses, the flute, and then 2 glasses.
Oh, the white and the red.
Correct. If you're short in glasses, yes, you actually may get away with doing flute, 1 glass, and dessert. So, and what I mean by that is that when you're switching glasses at the dinner table, and I'm going to grab this right over here, excuse me, what you do is, as long as the wine goes in a progression as from light to deeper to darker and more intense, you're fine, because the glass will be coated with whatever was left. That's why I said, if it's this, and perhaps your guests want to go back to that, then we're having a little issue with sugar content, and the glass will be coated with that. So if you're having, let's say, a glass for red and a glass for white and a flute, that will be plenty. That will be absolutely plenty. It is better, we say always in the industry, in our world, it is better for the glass to be coated with wine than to be coated with dishwashing fluid or paper towels or any of those sort. So it is much better to be coated with wine. So don't worry about having 50 million glasses or 7 wines, 7 glasses. It will crowd the table, and it's a lot of washing to do afterwards. In regards of holding the glass, I do discourage people from holding it up here. And what I mean by the reason I say that is it changes the temperature of the wine very quickly. And I always recommend to have the whites not very, very chilled, so you can express the true tones and the true flavor. And the reds, not very, very warm. In fact, put them in the refrigerator for 15 minutes before you serve them. So I always recommend people to hold it as such.
Okay.
You can take it a step further and do this, but I will recommend this and avoid the body.
Now, how do you explain to your clients the body of wine?
Oh boy, this is my favorite. So for those that can handle milk in different types of have cream with their coffee, the best way for me to describe it is to think about, so I said this is a light, this is a medium, and this is a full body. So think about milk. Think about skim milk, whole milk, 2% whole milk. Think about that texture that you feel in the mouth and how it coats your palate and it coats your tongue. That is body. Along with that, you do go into different types of tannins and acidity and so forth. There are components that will really complete the picture of body. But I will say for beginners or for people that really want to understand what is body, is as simple as skim, 2% and whole.
That's an excellent analogy.
Thank you.
It all makes sense.
Yes. Wine is a lot simpler than we think. We shouldn't take it that seriously. We should seriously enjoy it, but not take it so seriously.
That makes sense. So let's talk about the holidays some more. How do you prepare your shop for the holidays, and how do you advise, your clients when they come in?
I pay attention to what they want. And what I mean by that, a lot of my clients are clients that I've gotten to know over the years, and it's been wonderful. And I keep in mind what they like. I keep in mind what the weather is. I understand that it's going to be cold no matter what by Christmas in December, but how cold is it? How much are people going to be craving the deeper, darker tones? Or is it a unusual, warmer holiday? What can I bring to my shelves that it won't be so, that it will be a little bit more welcoming in the body? that's one way. So I keep temperature quite a bit in mind. I also keep price points. That's very important. Some people will want to do. I want a wine from $50 or above. Although I try to convince them they don't need to spend that much money. I understand that people want to give a little bit more over the holidays. So I cater to what my clients have pretty much trained me to bring to my shop.
Excellent. Now, we were talking a little bit about vintages when I first met you. Can you explain what vintage really means to our audience?
Sure. Just like going back to temperatures a little bit, vintages are quite important. They're not something to lose sleep over it, but it's definitely important. But that's usually our job. The people that purchase the wine, the people that build a wine list, people that build a selection. For instance, in my shop, all the wines that are on my shelves are wines that I carefully select and I taste before I bring them in. So with that said, I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of homework, I follow climate changes and temperatures and at times climate disasters that happen in different regions of the world. That gives me an insight about that vintage. And perhaps we won't see it immediately because the wine doesn't get released right away, but we will see it 2 to 3 years after. And keeping notes and keeping in mind which winemaker produces and how, that is how vintages come in place. And this topic could go extremely out there, but it's quite simple at the same time. If you, let's say you understand that sometimes it's raining too much, so you can imagine what the soil might be receiving, or it hasn't been raining at all. There are parts in the world where irrigation is not allowed in their vines, so therefore they only rely on what rain fall gives them to irrigate and to actually receive moisture to their soil. So these are the things that will modify a vintage. And then there are magazines that will rate wines and it will give them points, which I don't particularly follow that very much. I follow more my palate. But it's paying attention to what's happening climate-wise in the world.
And I did get to see you in action with your palate, because when we first met, you had a vendor come to your shop and you were actually doing a tasting, and I had never seen, that per se. And I was impressed the way you handled the glass and enjoyed the bouquet of the wine and didn't really drink any of it.
No, I don't. Oh my gosh. If I drank every wine I tasted, I will have a bigger problem. What I do, I take notes. I have over 5, if not 7,000 notes in record now, and I have several boxes of written notes. Now I have it all on my computer, but notes help me a lot to understand and digest the body and the complexity of the wine. So even if I don't refer back to those notes, it helps me understand fully the wine and really break it down. So you saw me sticking my nose in the glass, perhaps closing my eyes, and typing, and then asking perhaps interesting questions to the importer that was there that afternoon, and that's how I make my decisions. Taste, the character. Are they being truthful to the character of the varietal, and ultimately price.
Excellent. So now that client comes into the shop and they have a holiday party and they have no idea what to do. How would you advise them?
Well, I first ask how many people they're entertaining, what type of menu they're planning to do, how traditional or untraditional they're being. I ask perhaps for few ingredients, key ingredients of what they're playing with, and it kind of gives me an idea of what flavors and complexity and tones I want to go to. I also ask price points because I don't like to impose with a price that it might not be on their budget. And then I take it from there. How many wines will they like? What is the overall experience? So I ask a lot of questions, but they're generally pretty simple, and it kind of helps me understand what experience they want to share.
Now, by the same token, if a client of yours comes in and they're invited to, say, an office party, and they don't know what's being served, and they're looking to you as the expert,
Yes.
how do you approach that?
That is a tough one. At the same time, I have a lot of fun with it. So I ask about the relationship with the person who is gifting. So let's say it's my boss. I want a promotion. So I ask them, well, how much do you know your boss's palate, let's say? And then they will go ahead and tell me, I don't know anything about it. I just know they like red wine. So from there I go for what I think it caters a little bit more, what's a little bit more out there that is in people's mind. For instance, Pinot Noir has made a huge splash, so I know that it's quite safe. And if it's wintertime, if it's summertime, perhaps I'll do something outside the box, and I recommend a rosé or a very crisp white. So it all depends. And again, going back to budget, going back to what price point will they feel comfortable at.
So we have a lot of wines here. And as someone is planning for the holidays, do they need to remember a wine with each course, or is that something that's also flexible?
They will need to remember the wines for each course. But that's why I write notes for them. So I've spoiled a lot of my clients. I write right on the bottle numbers.
Oh.
So in that way, they don't have to fear about which one went with what.
Oh, what a great idea.
Perhaps they don't have to understand the body. They don't have to give the spiel that I give. But if they follow the actual order, they'll be in good shape.
Now, you have a lot of clients, and I think what makes you special is all the attention you give to those clients. Can you help build a menu?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a part of my background in food and wine has been as a restaurateur and what we call being in front of the house, which is where you deal with clients and with menu building and wine list building, and again, I take it step by step. I ask them what their goal is, how many courses, how daring they are in the kitchen, who's cooking, and is the cook there at the shop with me to talk about flavors.
That's a good point.
Yep. It always helps to understand what key flavors they're working in the kitchen, and also the method that they're cooking, because they could tell me several spices, but if, let's say, that chicken or pork is being grilled or is being oven roasted, then I might go for a different wine. So it's also the method of how they're making it.
What is your favorite region of the world, and why is it your favorite region of the world?
That
the
is
wine
a tough
world.
one. That is so tough, because I go by season, really.
So for the holidays, would there be?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to have to be so predictable on this one, and I'm terrible, but I will say Pinot Noir. Again, it's forgiving. It pairs with everything, and my weakness is Burgundy.
Wow.
I love Burgundy. It was perhaps one of the toughest regions for me to learn and understand, and now that I finally, 22 years in this, I'm finally trying to get my head around Burgundy, although this is not Burgundy. It is the home of Pinot Noir. I do tend to have a weakness for Burgundy, in the sense that I usually go there, especially for the holidays, white or red.
I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
So as you look at different regions of the world, and you have significant wine knowledge, you had mentioned something to me that I never considered, which was mass-produced wines.
Yes.
Could you touch on that and just explain to our viewers a little bit about, maybe the difference between the kind of wine that you supply and versus a mass-produced?
Absolutely. Mass-produced wines are wines that are not necessarily very truthful in the sense of they taste the same every year. Some of them perhaps don't even have a vintage. They are perhaps not as truthful farming or natural farming. Now, I'm not saying that I don't believe in pesticides, or I prefer no pesticides. I prefer minimum sulfites. I prefer to treat my body in a healthier way, and just how we pay attention to where we shop and read the back labels of the ingredients that we use and what's organic, what's not organic. I pay a lot of attention to the production that I bring in to my shop of who's producing the wine, how they're making it, how they're farming, what is their method, and there's so much manipulation in bulk wine that I believe, and I'm certain that we have reached now a very unhealthy level of wine producing, where wines are being modified to taste a certain way, and it's not necessarily all coming from the grape. So that is something to think about.
Yes. Now, you mentioned that you do, if somebody were, maybe before they plan a holiday meal, would want to taste wines, you have wine tastings in your shop.
Yes, yes. Every Thursday, rain or shine. Every Thursday, we do tastings from 6 to 8. And the tastings are quite friendly, very down to earth, more driven towards the education part. I always try to encourage people to ask me as many questions as possible. It could be as simple as question, and it could be complicated questions. If I don't know the answer, we'll go into the books together, and we're going through the atlas, and we're figuring out the answer. So I do have a pretty library there that we refer to, and I always welcome my clients to use. So I try to educate as much as possible, and that is simply so they can become better shoppers. As simple as that.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. We have just a wonderful resource in this town, someone who does wine tastings or will come to a book group or, maybe go to your home and will educate and inform and help you have a smashing holiday season, at least when it comes to pairing food and wine. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us on Boomer Being. See you next time.